Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. Started basically a little bit, I think I split the difference here. My phone says one thing, my CPU says another. We're going to split the difference here and get started. Welcome to today's webinar event. We're here to talk about Form 3508EZ, basically one of the forms that is used to request forgiveness for PPP loan monies in response to the CARES Act or COVID-19. Before we get started on those topics, on the topic at hand, a few technical things. Click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your control panel, webinar control panel. If you're using a single monitor setup, it allows you to minimize that control panel, get it out of the way, or drag it off to your second desktop if you've got dual monitors or more. Again, just to get it out of the way and see exactly what we're looking at here today. We're here until 12:20 Eastern Time. This topic may not last a full 20 minutes. It may be run close, but it's probably not going to run the full 20 minutes. We are recording today's webinar event, so you will be able to review that out on the Support Center page or on the COVID-19 resources page for Church Windows on our website here sometime later today or tomorrow or anytime thereafter. So you're certainly welcome to review it again. There are some handouts on the webinar today, so if you click on the handouts, little arrow next to the handouts section of the webinar, you're going to find the handouts that we've attached to it. We're going to discuss those momentarily in terms of the forms themselves. I'm just going to show them to you. We're not going to really go through each one of the details. They're forms. You basically review it. There's a checklist as one of the ones there, and we're going to look at both of those pages here, okay? If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I will do my best to answer these questions, folks. However, if I'm not, we're going to ask you that you send your question in response to the follow-up email that you'll get after attending the webinar today with your question, and I'll certainly be happy to get one of my other folks, the other person here who is probably more skilled in answering some of these questions than myself, to follow up with you with regards to that. But again, I will do my best to see what I can't do to get those questions answered if possible. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about our, PPP loan forgiveness and particularly as they pertain to the 3508EZ form itself. It's not that I don't want to answer them for you. I just may not be equipped to do it. It may not be suitable for our topic today, and there may be another webinar event that may be better suited to answer your question. Or, of course, folks, our technicians are happy and available to answer questions at any time. Please don't hesitate to call us. We're happy to help. Okay, so first of all, there are two documents that are pertinent and relevant with regards to PPP loan forgiveness request. I've got those pages bookmarked here, so we're going to go to our bookmarks, and right here, the first one is the instruction form. So if we go to the instruction form, it brings up the Paycheck Protection Program EZ Loan Forgiveness Application Instructions for Borrowers. We can't stress that you review this enough. Okay, this is just a link to the URL page. The document itself, the download PDF that we have attached, is the document that you're actually downloading that is actually with those actual instruction details. Okay, it was updated most recently on October 31st. Okay, so it is the most recent iteration of that form that we were able to get our hands on. This is directly from the SBA.gov website, folks. Okay, so the document that we've attached there is from this page, this link right here. Okay, this page right here, you may want to go to the SBA.gov and go to this page just as a resource for questions that you may have about PPP Protection Program loan forgiveness. Okay, it's a great resource. Okay. The other one that we want to show you is the actual form itself. So I'm sorry, let me click on the download PDF because, again, it's the same one that we've got attached to the webinar today. But basically, it's basically loan forgiveness application instruction form. Okay, it's pretty simple. I mean, as far as I guess simple is concerned when requesting for this thing, things like this, but it basically has a list of calculations, everything else that are needed in order to be able to get the form submitted for loan forgiveness with regards to that. Okay. Again, it's 3-4 pages long. Looks like a lot of it is just instructions. It does talk about, respective line numbers as it pertains to 3508EZ. Again, if you have questions about that, please, follow up with us afterwards in response if those instructions are unclear. The other document we want to point out is when I go to the actual forgiveness form request itself. So this page now says Paycheck Protection Program Easy Loan Forgiveness Application. This isn't the instructions. This is the actual application itself. So when we click on download, it again opens the same form that you will see as the handout attached, and basically you fill in the information per the instructions. Okay? So again, we just want to let you know where these forms were obtained from, the SBA.gov website, that they are the current and most recent forms available to you with the instructions and the form itself. So now we're going to talk about a few things with regards to the actual PPP loan forgiveness, just a few details that we want to discuss about this, okay? So basically this form is suitable and applicable for PPP loan amounts that were for $50,000 or less, okay? It basically simplifies the process. It removes many of the complicated requirements for loan forgiveness. Certainly when the loan amount is over $50,000, the process becomes, I think, pretty much considerably more complicated with regards to that. But basically, the borrowers, when you have $50,000 or less, the form basically makes you exempt from calculations in the reductions of the forgiveness based on certain criteria. So basically, the $50,000 or less requirement, basically you cannot have cut or laid off or let go staff at the time the loan was requested and subsequently approved, and you cannot have reduced any employees' wages or salaries, okay? Those are two things that have to be in play here if you're wanting to request complete forgiveness for those for this loan amount. So hopefully everybody's here because your loan amount was $50,000 or less. If so, then this form and the instruction form should suit you perfectly for this, okay? You will need to submit the documentation to verify the amounts claimed for forgiveness, okay? For payroll costs, that will include things like your 941 form, along with any spreadsheets that reconcile your gross pay amounts versus the federal taxable payroll, any COVID-19 sick or family leave wages or retention credit wages, okay? I know if this is easy, then I can't imagine what the more complex form looks like or is deals with, okay? But you're going to need to provide the proof of how the money was used, and certainly with regards to, all the amounts that are actually entitled to be forgiven, as the case may be, most of which is going to be either payroll. But there are other things that can certainly be requested that will allow it to be forgiven as well, okay? The church cannot include salaries or payroll costs offset by other government programs as part of the PPP wages for forgiveness. So that would include anything, if I'm not mistaken, things that include any COVID-19 sick pay reimbursements that were paid back or paid by the government. I think that would include any FMLA amounts as well, Family Medical Leave Act, okay? So again, just payroll primarily. Again, it has to reconcile with regards to what the program requirements mandate. In addition to your payroll costs, payroll and related costs, the church can include other things like mortgage interest payments, rent or lease payments, any business utility payments. So I guess that would include things like your gas bill or your electric bill or water bill, as long as it helped keep the lights on and the building, hot or cold, as the case may be. Okay. Payroll and associated expenses must equal at least 60% of the loan to qualify for total forgiveness. So you'll have to determine whether the amount of the payroll that you're including as part of this amount, or these amounts on the form, are 60% or more of the loan forgiveness. Okay. Now, if many of you may have initially applied for the actual PPP loan amount when it was initially an 8-week time period or duration for that loan. Well, that, of course, was later expanded to 24 weeks. And it's important that you know, and we did talk about this on the earlier webinars that we did earlier in the summer, where you can change from the 8-week to the 24-week period payroll period at any time. You don't need to request that, okay? It's just you need to submit the appropriate payroll period on the actual form when you actually submit the application, okay? So again, if you just stipulate that. So basically, to make the long story short, is because you originally requested the 8-week period doesn't mean you can't change that afterwards. And why this is important is, in the interest of not having to pay any of the amount back, or at least as little of it as possible, if any, is use it up, folks. Exchange it to the 24 weeks. Use it for any payroll within that 24-week period, following the approval date, okay, or the approval or the receipt of the loan, okay? If you're not locked into, legally obligated to maintain it as an 8-week period for usage of the money, the government gives you permission to change that to 24 weeks at any time. Again, folks, it's so again, don't be afraid to exchange that. They want you to use the money. So in an attempt to be able to keep people employed and people on staff and keep people, from claiming unemployment. So again, if you're not at the 60% threshold and you're at 8 weeks and you haven't used all the money, extend it out to the 24 weeks and then make sure that you're meeting the 60% threshold, I guess is what I'm saying about that. Okay. The church may elect to use 24 weeks of payroll instead of 8 weeks of payroll, okay? Any loan secured after June 24th must use June 4th of 2020, June 4th, must use the 24 weeks of payroll, okay? So if your loan was approved after June 4th, then you're already automatically on the 24-week payroll period, okay? If the 8 weeks are used, the maximum amount of the compensation claimed for any individual cannot exceed $15,385. Okay, so basically, the point being about that is if you are going to stick with the 8-week period because the amount was used and you meet the 60% threshold, then that's for any one individual employee. Okay, cannot exceed the $15,385. So if you have an employee who definitely exceeded that, then you're just going to fill in the maximum amount of the $15,385. And the same is true for the 24-week maximum as well. Okay, the amount cannot exceed for a single employee $46,154. So again, if you had an employee who you paid and their payroll exceeded the $46,154, you're just going to enter that amount in the amount of the pay for that particular employee, or include that in your calculations as the case may be. Okay. Finally, with regards to the borrower itself, the borrower may ask you to submit the information on the bank's form. Okay, so now while this is the one from the Small Business Administration, or SBA, your bank or borrower, the lender may ask you to fill out one of their forms and not this one. So you'll want to find that information out before you complete that information. Quick email, quick call to them. Just say, hey, can we use the SBA's form, or do you all have a form? Do you have a form that we need to use that is set up for your system, or that you're preferring that we use? Okay. This is complex stuff, folks. Okay. There's nothing easy about this at all. Okay. This is an unprecedented occurrence in 2020 for all of us, and so we understand that it can be stressful. We're here to try to help if we at all can. We just want to make sure that you're aware that we also have our Church Windows new project helper available, which we're certainly happy to assist with that. Yes, there is an expense involved, but if you're concerned about this, then by all means, and what I'm talking about here is if we go to back to our homepage and we go to supporting, and we go right down here to training resources, right over here on the right, we've got the one called Church Windows Helper Services. These are things that we've introduced this year to aid and assist our customers. Yes, there's a fee associated with those, but again, if you're stressed out about it or you're unsure or you need our assistance, this may be just the thing that you need. So Church Windows Helper, it's payroll project and payroll helper. This most likely falls under the guise of project helper, but we are certainly happy to help with getting these PPP loan applications submitted with the appropriate documentation. Okay? So again, we've got you as best that we can. You've got to get those documents organized, your spreadsheets, your 941 forms. You've got to get all of that stuff, together and organized. But before you do that, start with the forms, okay? Look at not the forgiveness application, I'm sorry, the instructions, okay? It's a 4-page document. Review it, re-review it, reread it. If you're not sure, contact somebody who may know locally or, reach out to us, and we'll certainly do our best to answer those questions for you, okay? Then go ahead and then again contact your lender and ask them if they have their own form that they want you to complete and fill out. And if they do, make sure that they get that to you so you're not spending a whole lot of time filling out the SBAs when they've got their own and you fill it in and you send it in and they go, oh, well, we had our own form, So again, make a quick call to them and, hopefully they're going to say just use the SBA's form. If not, make sure that they get that over to you right away. And then go ahead and try to organize your material based on what those instructions are to get that form completed and submitted. Okay? So that's where the extent of our webinar event today. So we're going to go ahead and leave that there.